Hey guys, this is Amber from the Happy Caravan. I'm a mom of 10 kids and we live in New York City. And today I'm going to give you the birth story for baby number 2, which is my sweet Pearl. Pearl is now 19. She's going to be 20 in January. So she's almost 20. It just seems like yesterday that she was born. But her birth story is kind of, if you watch birth story number 1, there was kind of like, that was first baby, super traumatic, like the doctors and nurses are not really like checking up on me, and it was almost like, you know, something really bad could have happened with baby number 1. So that was like, I kind of was traumatized by that. But after he was born, we started going to a church, which we're no longer going to, but it was an independent fundamental Baptist church, and there were a lot of Christian big families there. It was kind of like the homeschool crowd. It was a little bit like the IBLP-ish, like the women wore skirts, and it was just no rock music was allowed, like, so it was very conservative. And I think a lot of the people who had been sort of at least influenced by the IBLP, which is what the Duggars were in, they were attracted to this sort of independent fundamental Baptist church because they had a lot of the same similar things happening. So they anyway, so we went to this church, and there were just all these big families. And at this point, Josiah was about 9 months old, and so I had nursed him and so forth, but I started giving him like table food or baby food, and he really liked that. And so what that ended up doing was I wasn't nursing as much, and so my body went back into like, okay, let's have a baby year. And so we ended up getting pregnant with Pearl when Josiah was 9 months old, my first baby. And so it was really interesting being that I've never had 2 babies that close together. I know a lot of people do. A lot of people have a lot of babies. Like sometimes the first baby will be 3 months old and they get pregnant with the second one. That's not me. My body, when I'm nursing full time, is like, no, we're not having another baby. And that's not the case with every woman. I mean, nursing is not, it's not like a fail-safe, like, oh, because you're nursing, you're not gonna be able to get pregnant. But for me, if the kid's not eating other food, if I'm nursing, my body has never gotten pregnant at that point. So for me, that's been a good, kind of child spacer. So, but because Josiah was eating quite a bit at 9 months old, he really liked food. I was able to get pregnant with Pearl. And so when she was born, Josiah was 18 months old. So that's my closest gap. And it's hard taking care of an 18-month-old and a brand new baby at the same time, particularly when you don't have older kids. I often get questions like, oh, how do you manage it all? And honestly, I don't. I mean, I try not to have the older kids totally babysit the younger kids and this and that, but at the same time, they love the little kids, especially like the older kids. So Pearl is going to the Juilliard school for college, and so she's not at home as often. But she'll come home and she'll see, little baby Moses, and the first thing she wants to do is like come see him and hug him. And if he's not in the living room when she comes home, she asks where he is. And so, like, she went to Canada and she FaceTimed us, and the person she always wanted to talk to was Moses. So anyway, that sounds like Moses or Melody. Anyway, never a dull moment around here. It's a screen-free day, which means that they're supposed to be playing with each other nicely. So sometimes that word nicely is ignored. But anyway, so the older ones really do help with the younger ones, and I'm super, super grateful for that. So anyway, so Pearl's birth was just like not... He's like, you want to come see me? Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. Say hi. So Pearl's birth was not traumatic. My first birth story, I had to be induced. I was 2 weeks overdue and I had to be induced. And the same thing almost happened with Pearl. I was 2 weeks overdue and they were like, I don't like to say threatening to induce me, but they were like nothing really seemed wrong, like fluid levels and everything were fine. But they were like, oh, you're 42 weeks. This baby's got to come out. So right kind of before they were going to do the induction, I started going into labor. And it was so weird to go into labor, yes, on my own. I had never experienced that because before I had Cervigel, all back labor, like nothing, I didn't even feel anything around here. It was all in my back with my first baby. So the second baby, I was actually, with Pearl, I was actually feeling contractions and I went to sleep the night before, kind of dreading like, oh no, this impending induction. But then my body started going into labor and all night I couldn't sleep the entire night, which that was exciting. I mean, I kind of got like a 15 minutes here or there, but like it was not, it was not restful sleep. And so then I ended up calling labor and delivery. My contractions were, you know, probably 5 to 10 minutes apart. But I ended up calling and they admitted me. And this was like about 8 or 9 in the morning. And so I went into the hospital and I just had all these, you know, these contractions, and it didn't seem like you're supposed to dilate, and it's not, it doesn't seem like I was dilating as fast as I should have. And you know, they always get kind of, you know, it's not like a home birth or whatever where your bed is your bed. There's only so many beds in the hospital, and if you're like taking up one of their valuable beds and not moving fast enough labor-wise, they kind of get like a little annoyed. So welcome to modern medicine. Aww. But anyway, so they, you showing your car? That's a nice car. So anyway, they, I didn't have to be induced. I finally was able to like go into labor, and actually dilate and actually have a baby. But I did end up having an epidural, and I kind of didn't want one. But what happened was, my husband, he's super sweet. I hadn't really eaten anything. I had Cheerios in the morning. For some reason, when I'm pregnant, my body craves Cheerios. I don't know what it is. When I'm not pregnant, not so much. But when I'm pregnant, just Cheerios all the way. So I had Cheerios in the morning, and that was all I had eaten. And then you go to the hospital, they don't really want you to eat anything. But I was still able to walk around because I didn't have an epidural yet. So I was kind of like walking through the hallway with my contractions just to try and kind of like speed things up. They're like, well, maybe walk, you know, because you're laying in the bed ain't doing it, girl. So my husband was super sweet, and he got me like a vitamin water. And I was trying to eat really healthy and so forth then. And so he probably thought, well, that looks good, right? Or I think it was vitamin water. It was something that had some sort of like supplemented vitamins in it. And for some reason, after I drank that, I had such nausea. I ended up throwing up. And for some reason, every pregnancy, when it's labor, if I throw up, that's it. It is like, this baby's coming in like 4 minutes or whatever. Just so bad. Like, obviously it didn't happen with Pearl because, she was only my second baby. But I mean, it's just whenever I've thrown up, it's just labor happens so fast after that. But it's like all in the realm of the unbearable. In fact, with Moses, I had to be induced, unfortunately, and they had given me Pitocin and so forth, but I didn't do like pain medication. I was like, I just want to be as natural as possible. But when I started to feel nausea in my IV, because I forget why I have to have an IV. They just gave me an IV. It was in Kaiser, Oakland. I don't know if that's just what they do. She gave me some anti-nausea medication because I just know, like, if I throw up, it's it. That's it. And labor is like, it's no longer, it just feels so much worse. So anyway, so that's what happened with Pearl. And I ended up getting an epidural after that because the labor was really hard after I threw up after the vitamin water. So then I did get the epidural, and you know, you never know. After you get an epidural, it's kind of like, well, what's happening? Because you don't really feel the contractions. You don't really feel yourself dilating anymore. And as I've had more children, I've started to kind of know, like, it's it's kind of sad. Like, once you kind of learn to feel what your body's doing, your body's like almost done like having kids, you know? Like, I feel like I've come to the point where it's like, oh, that's so nice. I feel like I've come to the point where I feel what's happening to my body, and I'm sort of like, I feel my body contracting, and I'm like, oh, that's what it's doing. And I kind of like, I understand it better. You like showing your tummy? I understand it better. But then again, you know, like, kind of my childbearing years are probably coming to an end pretty soon, you know. But I think that's what's, in the olden days, I'm going to guess, you know, probably what happened was an older woman who had back in the day, mamas had a lot of babies, you know. And so a midwife was probably an older woman that had experienced childbirth and kind of knew what was going on because she had had a number of children, and she's able to kind of coach a younger woman who's going through it for the first time. That doesn't really happen in modern medicine. A lot of times it's just like, you know, it's very it's very sterile and very, like, you know, scientific, but really a coach, or like, I guess they call it a doula nowadays, would be helpful. Maybe that's my career. My kids are like, what are you gonna do when we're all grown up? I'm like, maybe I'll be a doula. I'm not sure. But anyway, so yeah, so I didn't know after I got the epidural what was happening with my body, and I guess at some points I was 10 centimeters and they told me to push. And for some reason, the other weird thing about me is my bag of waters kind of doesn't break. I don't know what it is. I have had them break like twice, maybe. But like, and this, I know I've had 10 children, so like 8 bags of water have basically have stayed intact, that have had to basically be broken by the hospital staff, because I guess you can birth a baby in the bag of water, but I don't know, that doesn't sound comfortable. So obviously you want the baby to be as compact as possible, but so that's something. I remember my bag of water had to be broken, and I was able to push her out, and I don't remember if I got stitches after that pregnancy, but it was just so strange to go from Josiah, my first baby, who had to be in the NICU for 3 days, who, you know, I didn't get to see after birth. I had to pump instead of breastfeed, just all these things. With Pearl, I was able to, like, see her. There was still kind of the era, you know, this is almost 20 years ago, when they took your baby away for like hours after they were born, which now they don't do that anymore, which I'm grateful for. But so, like, they let you nurse the baby a little bit at first, like maybe like you had like a half hour, you know, it was almost like visiting rights before your baby goes to jail, you know. And then they, you know, took the baby off and did all the tests and all the you know, the vitamin K and all the stuff they do. Now, at least in Kaiser, in both the southern San Diego and also in Oakland, they just let you have your baby with you, and even the hearing test and everything, they bring the stuff to your room, so you just get to have that baby with you, which is nice. I know sometimes it's nice to have them whisk the baby away so you can sleep, but as a new mother, I mean, I'm never so nervous as when I'm not with the baby. I don't know why. I just feel like, I don't know, something in me just feels most at peace, like, oh, I can rest, you know, if the baby's there. But that's not the way every mother is. I'm sure some mothers are like, take the baby, mama needs to sleep. So anyway, and then of course I like being able to nurse the baby and just get that, you know, that party started, even though there's really not a lot of milk at the beginning, just that, you know, it kind of helps your body like figure out like, okay, time to nurse, time to make milk. And so anyway, so they took her away and for hours, and then finally I got her back, and you know, it was just so nice. I think they let her be in the room with me for a lot of the time. But during the hospital stay, she had kind of a really mild jaundice. So they were kind of monitoring that, and they just had me put her in a window and all that stuff. And so she was, like, in a few days, she was back to her bilirubin was fine and so forth. And so, yeah, it was so refreshing compared to my first labor, where I didn't go into labor naturally. Just for my body to go into labor naturally was really nice. My first pregnancy and labor was all back labor, like nothing here. I didn't feel anything here. It was all on my back. And the second pregnancy, it was like normal contractions, so that was really nice. Being able to have the baby with me, just all these things. I kind of felt like I was a champion, you know. I felt very empowered by Pearl's birth. And so almost a little too empowered, maybe, because my third birth, which was by far my most traumatic, you know, I guess I was a little bit kind of nonchalant, like, oh, I got this, you know, which is, you know, it's good. My third birth was C-section, you know, big drama, 10 days in the NICU with my third baby. All these things, just, they make you take nothing for granted, which is good, because it's sometimes easy to have, you know, things work out, you know, and just be like, oh, I'm good, you know, this is just. And the other thing too is, like, you know, I'm glad that I haven't had just all these rosy experiences, you know, because sometimes I'll see birth stories for moms who haven't really gone through some of that trauma, and, you know, you watch that, you almost feel like guilty, like, oh man, something's wrong with me. But you want to show that? You want to show that? We found our coin sleeves. You know what? In the olden days, if there wasn't kind of this medical intervention, which is annoying at times, but life-saving at others, you know, you would have been one of the statistic women that just died. You know, that's what used to happen in the olden days. And so, you know, I'm grateful for, it's also given me a balanced appreciation for modern medicine, because, you know, really, if like, my nature is to be one of those, like, baby in the bathtub. Oh, we don't have a bathtub in this current apartment. Oh, we do actually in the boys' room, but that would be weird. I'm kind of one of those baby in the bathtub type of people. Home birth, you know, I would love to do that, but obviously I'm not the VBACs, they don't allow that. But, you know, that's my nature, and I probably would, you know, err on maybe being slightly more judgmental. I hate to think that, but, like, I don't know, you know, if I hadn't had difficult births and pregnancies and so forth, you know, I might be a little bit, like, you know, think I know it all. And I don't. I've realized through trial and error that I don't know it all. I made a lot of mistakes. So anyway, my goal, so I'm pregnant with baby number 11. My goal in having a baby is to, you know, because it's a VBAC, you know, I know some people do have VBACs at home. It's, like, contraindicated, you know, they say don't do it. So my goal is just to be, like, still within that medical intervention, like, space, but not overly medicated, not overly epidural if at all possible. Like, just have it be as natural as possible, but still have there be, you know, like, life-saving measures just down the hallway if something goes wrong. Just because in my past pregnancies and births, I've needed that, you know? And so, for me, that's my goal. Yes. Yes. And this is my first baby that I'm having in New York. I've had all my babies in California, so, you know, sometimes state by state, there's, you know, different regulations, and I'm not really sure, you know, what, I've kind of looked it up, like, I'm supposed to have a baby at Mount Sinai West. I think that's the admitting hospital. And I've looked it up, and it seems like countrywide, there's kind of been a push to have as much, you know, mother-baby time as possible, not whisking them off to the NICU as soon as, you know, they're born, basically. Like, just, it seems like modern science and medicine has kind of come more in line with kind of the old-fashioned, like, you know, have your baby at home style of, you know, like after you had a baby at home. You hear the thunder? It has been thundering and lightninging around here so much. So it just seems like modern science does seem to have kind of caught up with kind of the old ways, which is good. But then there's still the, like, you know, there's still the real, you know, just the life-saving measures. So that's where I'm at, and you know, I don't know what the future holds. It's scary to, like, every time, you know, people are, a lot of times, you know, you'll talk to a nurse or something and they'll find out that you've had like 10 kids or whatever, and they're like, oh, you know this, you know, you've got this, you know, you could teach us everything. Like, they'll say something like that, and I'm like, no. I mean, every birth is so unique, and every time I'm always surprised, you know, so, and it's just, it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and next birth story will be baby number 3, which was Elijah, and he was and is a life-changing child. So yes, which is good because I needed to be changed. See you next time.
Bye.
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 Have you been watching Miss Rachel? Did she teach you how to say bye? Yes. You hear the thunder? Yes, thunder. Outside it's so loud. Yeah, it's loud. Is it loud?